Welcome to Warfare Codex. If you enjoy fascinating and unusual history, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more incredible stories. Now, let's dive into the strange and extraordinary world of history's most unique individuals. 20. The Great Omi, the Human Spider. The Great Omi, born in 1886 as Otto Omi, was a German performer who became famous for his unique act as the human spider. He was born with a condition that caused his limbs to be shorter than normal, and his feet were turned backward, making him appear spider-like when he crawled. Otto's act captivated audiences because of his ability to perform acrobatic feats while crawling on all fours like a spider. His movements were quick and graceful, and he became a well-known figure in freak shows. He was able to walk, climb, and even do stunts that seemed impossible for someone with his condition. The Great Omi's performances brought him international fame, and he continued to perform in circuses and sideshows for many years. He passed away in 1946, but his legacy as one of the most intriguing and captivating circus performers lives on. 19. Isaac W. Sprague, the Skeleton Man. Isaac W. Sprague was born in 1841 in Massachusetts, USA, with an incredibly rare condition called congenital spondylitis, which caused his bones to be unusually brittle and fragile. His condition led him to develop a skeletal appearance, earning him the nickname the Skeleton Man. Sprague's extraordinary appearance made him a popular figure in sideshows, where he was often displayed as a living skeleton. Unlike many others in the freak show industry, Isaac was not only a sideshow attraction, he was also a gifted performer, engaging audiences with his wit and charm. Despite his fragile condition, Isaac Sprague lived a relatively long life for someone with his condition, passing away at the age of 40. His story stands out not just because of his appearance, but because he was known for his good humor and positive attitude in the face of his difficult life. 18. Charles Stratton, Tom Thumb. Charles Stratton, better known as Tom Thumb, was born in 1838 in Connecticut, USA. He was a dwarf, standing only 25 inches tall as an adult due to a form of proportionate dwarfism. Despite his small stature, Tom Thumb became one of the most famous circus performers of the 19th century. He was discovered by P.T. Barnum at the age of 4 and trained to perform in the circus. He quickly gained fame, touring with Barnum's shows and even performing for Queen Victoria in England. Tom Thumb was highly intelligent, a talented singer, and a gifted actor. His performances made him an international celebrity, and he eventually married another little person, Lavinia Warren, whom he also met through Barnum's circus. Tom Thumb's legacy continues to this day as one of the earliest and most iconic figures in the circus world. He died in 1883, but his impact on the circus industry and his contributions to sideshow culture endure. 17. Alice Doherty, the Woolly Girl. Alice Doherty was born in 1887 in Minnesota, USA, with an incredibly rare condition known as hypertrichosis lanuginosa, which caused her entire face and body to be covered in long, golden blonde hair. She was often referred to as the Woolly Girl. Unlike many others with similar conditions, Alice's hair was soft and fluffy, resembling the wool of a lamb rather than the thick, coarse hair seen in other cases of hypertrichosis. By the time she was 5 years old, her facial hair had already grown several inches long, making her a natural fit for the world of sideshows. However, Alice's story is different from most freak show performers. Unlike people like Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy or Lionel the Lion-Faced Man, Alice was never forced into a circus career. Instead, her family exhibited her privately in small shows and fairs. Despite her potential for fame, she never joined major circuses like P.T. Barnum's, and after a short period in the public eye, she disappeared from entertainment entirely. Alice Doherty lived a quiet life away from the spotlight and passed away in 1933 at the age of 46. Her case remains one of the rarest examples of hypertrichosis in recorded history, and she is still remembered today as one of the most unique human anomalies of all time. 16. The Hilton sisters, Daisy and Violet. Daisy and Violet Hilton were born in 1908 in England as conjoined twins, sharing a single body but having two separate heads, hearts, and spines. They were connected at the lower spine, which gave them a unique but complex life. Initially, the Hilton sisters were raised in relative isolation, but they soon became a popular attraction in the circus and sideshow world. Due to their rare condition, they were billed as the two-headed Nightingale sisters because they both had beautiful singing voices. Despite their fame, their lives weren't without challenges. The Hilton sisters had to endure the pressures of constant public scrutiny, and later in life, they sought to live independently. They spent many years performing and eventually appeared in movies, most notably in Todd Browning's Freaks. The Hilton sisters remained close throughout their lives. They passed away in 1969, but their legacy as one of the most famous and successful conjoined twin acts remains. 15. Mademoiselle Gabrielle, the half-woman. Mademoiselle Gabrielle was born in the late 19th century with a condition that left her with only the upper half of her body fully formed. She had no legs and no lower torso, making her appear as if she were a torso without limbs. Gabrielle was discovered by a circus promoter who saw her as a potential attraction for freak shows. Despite her condition, she was able to perform remarkable feats, including balancing herself on her hands and performing tricks. Her act fascinated audiences as she was one of the few performers who could defy physical limitations and still entertain with grace and strength. Gabrielle was one of the rare performers who seemed to find joy in her work, even as she dealt with the challenges of her condition. Very little is known about her later life, but Mademoiselle Gabrielle remains one of the most unusual and resilient figures in sideshow history. 14. Grady Stiles, the Lobster Boy. Grady Stiles was born in 1937 with ectrodactyly, a condition that caused his hands and feet to resemble lobster claws. His fingers were fused together, making them look like a lobster's pincers, earning him the nickname, the Lobster Boy. Grady's condition made him a natural attraction for freak shows, and he became one of the most famous performers in the business. Despite his physical deformities, he had a strong personality and a sharp sense of humor. Unfortunately, Grady's life took a darker turn. He was known for his violent temper and his troubled relationships. In a tragic twist, he was murdered in 1992 by his own son-in-law, who was fed up with Grady's abusive behavior. Grady Stiles' story is one of both success and tragedy. He rose to fame as one of the most unique figures in sideshow history, but his personal life was marked by conflict and violence. 13. Wang, the Human Unicorn. Wang was a Chinese farmer in the early 1900s, but he had something that set him apart from everyone else: a massive horn-like growth protruding from his head. This unusual condition earned him the nickname, the Human Unicorn. According to reports, Wang's horn was around 14 inches, 35 centimeters long, curving upward like something out of mythology. Many believed he was a medical mystery, while others saw him as proof that mythical creatures might have been real. Scientists and doctors at the time were baffled by Wang's condition. Most likely, it was a severe case of cutaneous horn growth, a rare disorder that causes keratin to build up and form horn-like structures on the body. But Wang's horn was one of the largest ever recorded in human history. As word spread, he was invited to be exhibited in various medical and scientific gatherings. Some believed he could have been a sideshow star, but there are few records of him ever participating in circus performances. His story remains one of the strangest documented cases of human anomalies. Did Wang suffer from his condition, or did he embrace his uniqueness? We may never know, but his legend as the real-life Unicorn Man lives on. 12. Jean Libera, the man with two bodies. Jean Libera was born with a rare condition where his parasitic twin did not fully develop in the womb. Instead of being absorbed, it attached itself to Jean's body, creating an additional body that grew alongside him. This phenomenon, known as fetus in fetu, caused Jun to have a second, underdeveloped torso and limbs protruding from his own body. As he grew older, he became known as the man with two bodies and was exhibited in freak shows. Jean lived a relatively normal life despite his condition. He could move and function as any other person, although his second body was a constant reminder of his unique circumstance. His story was one of curiosity, as he was one of the few individuals ever recorded with such a condition. Jean Libera eventually faded from public attention, and little is known about his later years. But his place in freak show history remains as one of the most fascinating medical curiosities. 11. Annie Jones, the Bearded Woman. Annie Jones was born in 1865 in the United States, with a rare condition that caused her to grow a full beard. By the time she was a teenager, her facial hair had become so thick that it was hard to ignore. Unlike many other sideshow performers, Annie didn't shy away from her appearance. She was presented as the Bearded Woman and quickly became a sensation. But there was more to her than just the beard. She had a stunning voice and performed in various acts, gaining popularity and earning a fortune. Annie's story is unique because, unlike others who were forced into show business, she embraced her situation. She even married and had a child, living a relatively normal life outside the spotlight. Her act eventually became one of the most iconic in the sideshow world, and she continued performing for years. She passed away in 1902, but her legacy as one of the most famous bearded women in history lives on. 10. Joseph Merrick, the Elephant Man. Joseph Merrick was born in 1862 in England with a condition that caused extreme deformities in his face and body. For years, his condition was a mystery, but today, doctors believe he had Proteus syndrome, a disorder that causes overgrowth of bones, skin, and tissue. As a child, Joseph was mistreated and rejected by his own family. With nowhere else to turn, he joined a freak show under the name The Elephant Man. Unlike many other performers, Joseph wasn't known for his acts. He was famous purely for his appearance. His head was abnormally large, his skin was thick and rough, and his limbs were swollen and misshapen. People were both horrified and fascinated by him. Eventually, a kind doctor named Frederick Trevis took him in and gave him a safe place to live. Under Trevis's care, Joseph finally experienced kindness and dignity. Sadly, Joseph passed away at the age of 27. His story became world famous and was later adapted into books, plays, and even the acclaimed 1980 film The Elephant Man. He remains one of history's most well-known and tragic figures. 9. Schlitzie, the Pinhead. Schlitzie was born in 1901 with microcephaly, a condition that caused his skull and brain to be abnormally small. This resulted in severe intellectual disabilities and gave him a distinctive appearance, with a pointed head and childlike facial features. Despite his condition, Schlitzie became a beloved sideshow performer. He was known for his cheerful personality and playful nature. Audiences were drawn to his innocence and charm, making him one of the most recognizable circus performers of the early 20th century. Schlitzie gained even more fame when he appeared in the 1932 cult classic film Freaks. His role in the movie turned him into a legend, and he continued performing until his later years. Unlike many other sideshow acts, Schlitzie was well cared for. He was taken in by fellow performers and lived a long life, passing away in 1971. To this day, he remains one of the most famous and beloved figures in sideshow history. 8. Francisco Lentini, the three-legged man. Francisco Lentini was born in 1889 in Sicily with a rare case of parasitic twin syndrome. He had 3 legs, 4 feet, and 16 toes. As a child, he was seen as a burden by his family and was placed in an institution. But instead of being ashamed, Francisco embraced his condition. He joined the sideshow circuit and became known as the three-legged man. He amazed audiences by kicking a football with his 3rd leg and even sitting on a custom-made 3-legged chair. Unlike many other performers, he was widely respected and lived a relatively normal life outside of the circus. He eventually married and had children, proving that he was more than just his unique appearance. He continued performing into his 70s and remained one of the most famous sideshow acts of all time. 7. Edward Mordrake, the man with 2 faces. Edward Mordrake is one of the most mysterious figures in freak show history. According to legend, he was a British nobleman born with a second face on the back of his head. This second face couldn't eat or speak, but it could smile, cry, and whisper disturbing things to Edward at night. He was said to be so tormented by the demon face that he begged doctors to remove it. When no one could help him, he supposedly took his own life at the age of 23. While his story has been passed down as fact, many historians believe that it may be a myth. No official medical records exist to confirm his condition. Still, the tale of Edward Mordrake continues to captivate people, inspiring books, movies, and even TV shows like American Horror Story. 6. Prince Randian, the human caterpillar. Prince Randian was born in 1871 in British Guyana with tetra amelia syndrome, meaning he had no arms or legs. Despite this, he lived an incredibly independent life. He was brought to the United States by P.T. Barnum and became a famous sideshow performer. His most impressive act was rolling and lighting a cigarette using only his lips. Audiences were mesmerized by his skill, and he became one of the most well-known performers of his time. Unlike many other sideshow performers, Prince Randian had a family. He was married and had several children. He lived a long and successful life, proving that he was far more than just a spectacle. He passed away in 1934, remembered for his resilience and remarkable abilities. 5. Julia Pastrana, the Bear Woman. Julia Pastrana was born in 1834 in Mexico with hypertrichosis and gingival hyperplasia, which caused excessive hair growth and an enlarged jaw. This gave her an appearance that many described as ape-like or bear-like. She was taken in by a showman named Theodore Lent, who saw her as a business opportunity. He married her and turned her into a touring attraction, advertising her as the ugliest woman in the world. Audiences were both fascinated and horrified by her appearance, but what they didn't expect was her remarkable intelligence. Julia was fluent in multiple languages, loved music, and was a skilled dancer. Tragically, her life was full of exploitation. She gave birth to a child who inherited her condition, but the baby died within days. Julia herself passed away shortly after due to complications from childbirth. Instead of burying her, her husband preserved her body and continued displaying her as a sideshow attraction, even after her death. Her embalmed remains were toured across Europe for nearly a century before finally being laid to rest in 2013. Her story is one of the most tragic in sideshow history, highlighting the cruelty many performers faced in the name of entertainment. 4. Maurice Tillet, the French Angel. Maurice Tillet was born in 1903 in France, a normal and healthy child. But in his teenage years, he developed a rare disorder called acromegaly, which caused his bones to grow abnormally large, giving him a massive head, hands, and feet. His once handsome face became strikingly different, with thick, protruding brows and an enlarged jaw. People began calling him the French Angel, not because of his looks, but because of his kind and gentle personality. Despite the challenges of his condition, Maurice became a professional wrestler in the 1940s. His unique appearance made him an instant sensation, and he quickly rose to fame. Many believe that his face later inspired the character design for Shrek. Maurice struggled with health issues due to his acromegaly and passed away in 1954, but his legacy remains, both in the world of wrestling and pop culture. 3. Ella Harper, the Camel Girl. Ella Harper was born in 1870 with a rare orthopedic condition called genu recurvatum, which caused her knees to bend backward. Because of this, walking on all fours was more comfortable for her than standing upright. This unusual trait earned her the nickname the Camel Girl. She began performing in sideshows as a teenager, quickly becoming a sensation due to her bizarre yet graceful way of moving. Posters of her show described her as the most wonderful freak of nature. But unlike many others in the freak show business, Ella had a different plan for her life. At the height of her fame, she suddenly left show business and chose to pursue an education. She wanted a normal life, away from the spotlight. Unlike many of her fellow performers, she wasn't exploited for her condition. She used it as a way to make money and then walked away on her own terms. Very little is known about her later years, but records suggest she lived a quiet life until her passing in 1921. Her story stands as one of the rare examples of a sideshow performer who truly managed to escape the circus world. 2. Lionel the Lion, Faced Man, Stefan Bobrowski. Stefan Bobrowski was born in 1890 in Poland with the same condition as Fedor Jevtuchenko, hypertrichosis. But in his case, the hair was even more extreme. His entire body was covered in long golden blonde fur, earning him the nickname Lionel the Lion-Faced Man. Unlike Jojo, Stefan's mother was horrified by his appearance and gave him away to a showman when he was just a child. He was soon brought to Germany, where he began performing in sideshows, drawing crowds who wanted to see the human lion. Despite his shocking appearance, Lionel was an incredibly gentle and soft-spoken man. He was well-educated, fluent in 5 languages, and known for his kind personality. Unlike many other sideshow performers, he was not forced into his career. He embraced it and made a fortune from it. After years of performing in Europe and the United States, Lionel eventually retired to Germany, where he lived out the rest of his life in peace. He passed away in 1932, leaving behind a legacy as one of the most famous circus attractions of all time. 1. Fedor Jevtuchenko, Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy. Fedor Jevtuchenko was born in 1868 in Russia with a rare condition called hypertrichosis, which caused excessive hair growth all over his body. He wasn't the only one in his family with this condition. His father also had the same disorder, leading people to believe they were part of some mysterious bloodline. As a child, Fedor was discovered by P.T. Barnum, the legendary showman, who turned him into a worldwide sensation. Under Barnum's management, Fedor was given the stage name Jojo the Dog-Faced Boy and was presented as a wild, feral creature. He was taught to growl, bark, and act like an untamed beast. But in reality, he was nothing like the character he played on stage. Fedor was highly intelligent, well-spoken, and fluent in multiple languages. Despite his condition, he lived a relatively successful life, traveling across Europe and America as one of the most famous circus performers of his time. He continued performing until his death at the age of 35, forever remembered as one of history's most extraordinary figures. Thanks for watching Warfare Codex. If you enjoyed this journey into history's strangest figures, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more amazing stories. See you in the next one.